house on our Zoom. And for those who are Zooming, we're making some technical adjustments. So using a little different camera system today, just temporarily. But we're thankful for everybody's presence. I hope you've got a copy of the outline. I normally have almost a fail-safe system where I will never forget my PowerPoint to bring it when I drive from Ruckelsville to here. And my fail-safe system worked well, but I put the wrong file in. And so you're only going to get the title page of the PowerPoint today, and we're going to just have to open our Bibles and you look at the outline. I hope you have a written outline. If those who have heard me speak before, I give you a lot of material. In the outline, there's more material than I'll cover, but I want you to be able to look up the verses and be able to study. Very, very practical lesson today. I've titled it, What Your Friends Say About You, and I haven't been hearing gossip about you, so that's not what this is about. But it is kind of looking at our lives and looking at how we built our lives. Who are your friends? What comes to your mind right now? You know, I haven't had many friends in my life. I have sort of friends, but my close friends have been very few. Vividly remember my close friends. I'm married to my best friend. I've had some of my best friends pass away, some at a young age, but I still remember them. Who are your friends? Wise men will build their lives upon the gifts that God gives. James 1:17 talks about every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. James 1:5 says, if you want wisdom, ask of God, who gives all liberally and without reproach. In this life, our relationships are going to be the greatest gift we can have. Did you know the greatest relationship is a relationship with God? And you're going to find as you come to know God, it'll impact your other relationships. But we are social people. As the man, as a young man, I used to think I'm going to be independent. What the old Simon and Garfunkel tune. Now that really goes back, doesn't it? The 60s. I am a rock. I am an island. No, we're not. We need people. The local church is about relationships. Are we building on God's gifts? It's quite interesting as Jesus described the identity of his people. He's going to say, what are the identifying marks of a Christian? And there's plenty. But what did Jesus say the identifying marks of a Christian is? Listen to this, John 13, verse 34. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. That's relationships. As I have loved you, that's relationship. That you also love one another. By this, all will know that you're my disciples if you love one another. Relationships are complex, aren't they? People are complex. How we're put together, what we like, how we think of others, how we sometimes think we can read others' minds. I won't get into that part of the lesson. But relationships are crucial. And let me tell you a little bit about Jesus. Did you know, I trust all of you are Christians today. If not, I'd love to persuade you to come to know Jesus and to follow him. And do you know how Jesus chose to talk to us, to call us? I believe he's talking about his disciples in John 11, but I believe it applies to us as well. John 11:11. These things he said after he said to them, our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I go that I may wake him up. So he talks about Lazarus as being not just his friend, but our friend. But now, John 15:14, dealing with the disciples. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all things that I've heard from my Father, I've made known to you. Friendship. It is a great gift. And I want to tell you, I need friends. You need friends. One of the powerful things about our God, He will use friendship to accomplish some great things in our lives. So let's talk about friendship. We've already mentioned it's a gift of God. And way back before even, back in the 80s and 90s, I was seeing a trend in my life. And you see this, all kinds of people that write about this today. Just got a recent book called The Anxious Generation. But it's dealing with how social media has impacted our relationships, how there are fewer friends. But even before social media came up, I'm going to read a quote from a book called Bowling Alone. In 2 decades, from 1985 to 2004, the number of people who have no one to talk to has doubled. And the number of confidants of the average American has gone down from 3 to 2. Imagine if some other piece of the social safety net had frayed furiously. Imagine if income had gone down by a third, or divorce doubled, or the medical system half. We would be setting up commissions and organizing rallies. This was written before social media. And we've seen that increase. The mental health issues that we're seeing in this country are a direct result of our loss of relationships and many other things. I'm seeing that in our evangelism. I'm seeing that in everybody that we're working with. We're struggling with relationships. You know how we fix that? Let's come to know God. What is a friend? A friend provides comfort in difficult times. In Acts 27 and verse 3, Paul was imprisoned. He's going to Rome. He's about to face Caesar. And to tell you, the Roman officials respected Paul. And listen to what they did for him. Acts 27:3. And the next day we landed at Sidon, and Julius treated Paul kindly and gave him liberty to go to his friends and receive care. Isn't it great to have people that you could trust? That you could just sit down and talk the things about your life and what's going on? Isn't it wonderful to have those that when you're in trouble, you know that they're saying, come on, man, I want to help you and be with you. I remember in my single days, my best friend as a male that I've had in my life, David, passed away about 5 years ago, was David Hartzell. I remember as a single guy, I'd finish preaching on Sunday, and then I'd drive up to go visit with David and Belinda. And then we would go run. We were training for a marathon. We trained the next day. But it was just great to be with people who really cared about you. Acts 18 and verse 9. Here, even though the word friendship is not given here, it says, and the Lord spoke to Paul in the night by a vision. Do not be afraid, but speak and do not keep silent, for I am with you, and no one will attack you to hurt you, for I have many people in this city. You know, we got a lot of visitors today. Thank you for your visiting to us this morning. We haven't met you before, I don't think. But you know, there's something about being with other Christians. There are times I just almost feel like I've got somebody that could be my friend. We have certain things we share in common. We have certain faith. There's certain qualities. You know, one of the things Yvette and I loved in our travels is visiting with churches. When we went on our honeymoon, there's many highlights of our honeymoon, but one of the greatest highlights was meeting other brethren. I could tell you some great stories about that, but I won't because of time today. But it's just fascinating of how when we come to know God, and when we come to know people who know God, you're among friends. In 1 Samuel 23 and verse 16, the greatest element of a friendship is really, we can see it in Jonathan and David. Here when Jonathan and David got together, Saul was trying to kill David. That's Jonathan's father. Then Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went to David in the woods, and listen to this. He strengthened his hand in God. The greatest friends you can have is somebody that's going to strengthen you in God, that's going to talk to you, that's going to talk about God. Friend, let's keep going through the outline. I'm slowing down a little bit here, but a friend will rebuke when others remain silent. If you want to know what the quality of a real friend is, see what they do when it's uncomfortable for them, but it's profitable for you. See what they do when they have to do something that could challenge the friendship. Now, you got a real friendship, it's not going to challenge it, it's going to make it stronger. But here's what a friend does. Proverbs 27:6. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of enemies are deceitful. Verse 9 of the same chapter. Ointment and perfume delight the heart, and sweetness of a man's friend gives delight by hearty counsel. And verse 17, as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. In my single days, I was a mess. And I can remember sometimes David kind of sitting down and says, Larry, here's some things you need to hear. And he would talk to me. And you know what? There would be times I'm going, uh-oh, this is going to hurt. But then I also know David loves me. And that's true in marriage. There are times Yvette will tell me there's some things we need to talk about. And there are those times I'm going, what did I do? But again, I know that Yvette has the very best interest of heart for me. You see, that's what friends can do. Friends will not let you be heading off the ledge and go, oh, well, I hate to see them do that. They're going to stand up and say something, even when it is difficult. Aren't you glad to have friends like that? That's why we need people, brethren. We cannot be isolated. We in the local church, we ought to be friends with one another. And I appreciate how this church is being built. I appreciate our small group. That's one of the reasons I told you when I moved here, I don't know what the Lord has for me, but I plan to die here. You may get somebody else preaching, but this is the kind of group I want to be around. But how you build a local church, we need one another. A friend is someone to share your life with. In Luke 15, there's a parable. Somebody found something that was lost. And when he comes home, he calls his friends and neighbors, saying to me, rejoice with me, for I found thy sheep which was lost. Somebody loses a coin, verse 9. And when she has found it, she calls her friends and neighbors together, saying, rejoice with me, for I have found the piece which I've lost. What do you do when you see something great? What do you do when something wonderful has happened to you? What do you do when you hear some news that you really want others to know about? I want to go to my friend. I want to go talk to Yvette. I have others I want to talk to. You see, friendship. You get to share not just your burdens, but you get to share your life. What a blessing. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 26, it's put this way as a local church. We are to be friends. And if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. Or if one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. Now, you are the body of Christ and members individuals. Could I say something? If we're so busy, we can't even make the assembly. How can we do that? And I recognize sometimes people are in very special situations. I recognize there are things you got to make money and you got to do other things. But we need one another. One of the great challenges we're facing right now amongst our men is we're finding men that don't have initiative. We're finding men oftentimes they want to pull away from associations. And you've got to watch it if you've got that tendency. If you want to do the work of God, you've got to be around people. And God will challenge you on that. And let him challenge you. Another thing about friendship. A friend is someone whose loyalty you can depend on. Folks, don't make me feel good if I'm about to jump off the ledge. There are times where people may say things about me. They may say things about you. But the right kind of friend I don't worry about on those things. You know why? Because if somebody says something about me to my friend and they give credible evidence that it's happened, my friend's going to come to me and say, hey, Larry, what you doing? Let's fix this. They're not going to gossip behind your back and pull away from you because they care about you. You see, that's parent-to-child relationship. You want to talk about friendship and loyalty? We want to raise our children to be faithful. But as your children get older, you won't always want to talk to them. As a parent, you want to tell them what they need. Proverbs 17:17, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Proverbs 18:24, a man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Now, let me say something. Do you want to have friends like that? Maybe you want to end up marrying someone. Maybe you want to date someone and marry someone that would be that kind of friend. Do you know how you do that? You've got to learn to be friendly. You're not going to have a friend if all you got to do is go, I want to take, give me, give me, give me. If that's what you're doing, and you wonder why I don't have friends, could I say, look at the mirror? We have to learn, and it may be difficult, and it may be because of our background. We haven't done a very good job in relationships, but we've got to learn that. How many times, Rob, have we talked about in our studies? Connection, connection, connection. That is so important for all of us. At my age, I tend to want to pull back. That's my tendency as well. But if we know the Lord and we want to be involved with others, we will be friendly. We will work and make connections. Proverbs 27:10. Do not forsake your own friend or your father's friend. Nor go to your brother's house in the day of calamity. Better is a neighbor nearby than a brother far away. But I like that. Do not forsake your own friend. If you're hurting, reach out and connect with people that are Christians, that are honorable. Roman numeral 2, I'm going to deal with it briefly. But let me tell you who not to make friends with. This is just a basic survey of a fool. Did you know there are people that won't do things with you? There are people that will be very fun to be with. There are people that, as long as it's going well, particularly if you're paying for it, they want to party with you. Numbers 13:19 is a key verse. The desire accomplished is sweet to the soul, but it is an abomination for fools to depart evil. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. What was the 80s sitcom Cheers? You remember that? Now, I want to tell you, I just want to tell you honestly, it was a fun sitcom, but you know what? If you want to go to the bar and drink with some people and be at the bar, that's rarely going to be a place where you're really going to find friends. It's really going to be a place where somebody really cares about you. And so I'm just saying that if you really want to find friends, this is a good place right here to start, isn't it? To be around other people who love God and love the scriptures. Sometimes we want friends this way. I want a friend that won't tell me what to do. I want a friend that's going to let me say and do whatever I want. I'll have a drink with him, I'll party with him, and then I'll go home, and then he'll go home, and we go our separate ways. That's not friendship. You want to ask the prodigal son about that kind of friendship? When the money ran out, the friends ran out. Friendship is not superficial. It's not just, I'm okay, you're okay, I'll party, I'll enjoy what I want, and we do everything. I know that's what the world says friends are, but those are not friends. Because frankly, they could throw you away like a piece of garbage. If the situation came up, they could drop you like that, and that is not how you build your life. Proverbs 22 and verse 10. Cast out the scoffer and contention will leave. Yes, strife and reproach will cease. Listen to this. He who loves purity of heart and has grace on his lips, the king will be his friend. Wise people, you want to pray for wisdom? Build your friends in such that way. Now, a couple more things about the wrong kind of friendship. The fools is on short-term pleasure. So if the only thing you want a friend for is I want to play games with you, I want to do this, and then we go our way. I mean, it's okay to have those associations, but that's not much of association. But if the person is a fool, then that fun is not going to have very much meaning for you. Ecclesiastes 7:4, the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. For like the crackling of thorns under the pot, so is the laughter of a fool. This also is vanity. Let's party. Let's have fun. Let's do things. And then what happens after that? What happens when trouble comes to my life? The one who wants to party with you, they're going to go, bye. Hope you get feeling better. Hope you come back and party. That's empty. And so I'm going to give one more point of Roman numeral 2, then we'll go to Roman numeral 3. The D point of Roman numeral 2. One of the things about a fool is a fool really doesn't know how to live. The fool will make a mistake and they have no clue why, and guess what? They do the same thing over again. So the fool will be angry, and they'll have other people to be angry, and they'll throw people away, and they'll do all this stuff, but they don't realize they're not building anything that lasts. Proverbs 26:11, as a dog returns to his own vomit, so a fool repeats his folly. Proverbs 27:22, though you grind a fool and a mortal with a pestle along with crushed grain, yet his foolishness will not depart from him. Have you ever had friends, family members, maybe even children, they're going down a path and you're thinking, they won't listen, and you try to talk to them. And I realize sometimes they don't listen. You plant seeds and you hope something happens. And sometimes you say, if they crash and burn, maybe they'll learn. A lot of times in life, that doesn't work. Don't make friends with fools. Roman numeral 3, last section. This morning we're in the second last section. We're almost done. Friendship is both fragile and strong. You want to have a good friend? Are you ready, brethren? It comes at a high price. You don't just be given friends. You don't go to the Friends R Us store and you go make a purchase and then you have this friend, you wear it like a chain or a lock and it's there forever. No, sir. Friendships, like all relationships, have to be maintained. How does that work? Proverbs 17:17 talks about the strength of friendship. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. If I'm never around my friend, if I do not give time to my friend, it's going to be very difficult for that friendship to last. If the only time I want my friend around me is when I'm in need, and when they're in need, I kind of like, well, I hope it gets better, and I do something else. You're not going to maintain a friendship. Are you listening? We've got to be around people of quality, and we've got to maintain and prioritize that relationship. And God will help us. I will tell you, one of the most powerful tools to keep us faithful is our friendships. And that's the thing, as I've worked with my children, even now working with my children, one of the greatest keys of whether or not they're going to make it as faithful Christians is their friendships, is their connections. But a person can't make them have them. The Greeks had a saying, the crisis tests a friend as the fire tests the gold. One of the things that you see about the friendship that Jesus talked about in John 13, does Jesus love us? How do I know he loves me? What if I haven't done very good? What if I'm his enemy? What if I've been inconsistent? Did you know that God's love does not depend on my actions? Romans 5 talks about he loved us while we were still enemies. He loved us when we... And did you know the greatest love of friendship is a love of God? I want you to be my friend, and it may be you cease being my friend, but let me tell you one thing I'm going to have toward you, is I'm going to love you in spite of what you may do or say. What makes a strong friendship is unconditional love. But there are going to be sometimes my friend's going to be a little nutty. And there are going to be sometimes I'm going to be a little nutty. And there are going to be sometimes I'm going to do some things that are not good that will hurt my friend. But the beautiful thing about real friendship is that you don't give up on the other person. But that cost us. Job had friends that didn't do that. I'm not going to psychoanalyze Job's friends, but I'm afraid it was more about them than about Job. They did not listen to Job and understand really his background. They had no justice. They just had a bunch of sayings. They had a bunch of, you got to fix this, Job. Well, Job says, I haven't broken it. Oh yeah, you broke it. Well, can you convict me of that? No. So there's the wrong kind of friends. Job 19:19. Listen to this. Terrible situation. All my close friends abhor me. And those whom I have turned against, and those whom I love have turned against me. You know what the greatest test of friendship is? When you're willing to carry an undue load. Because you love your friend, you'll go the extra mile. And sometimes our friends go through valleys, and sometimes we're carrying far more burdens than they ever care for us, and that's okay. You know what God has made me to be? My God has made me to be wanting to give. And if in my relationships I'm giving, and I'm giving to good people who can't give to me right now, I'm glad to do that. How about raising a child? You know that. In raising children, you give, give, give. They can't give back to you like you would like. Relationships. Last point, last section. How can I be a good steward of my friendships? I think the greatest test of real friendship is spiritual growth. I think the greatest friends are going to be Christians. And I really believe that in that, it will cause me to grow. Even if I'm a friend with a non-Christian, I'm going to be influenced by God's word as being a giver. And I really believe as we more empty ourselves, as we more learn to give, we will grow spiritually. I learned about doctrinal issues. I learned about right and wrong. I'll have people that will rebuke me and challenge me. In James 1:17, one more time, the gift that God gives. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. Let me just mention a few things and we'll close. Something strange happened to me when I became a Christian. It was back in 1974, and even a year before that, I started making some serious changes in my life spiritually. I had a certain group of friends, and I liked to be with them, and I kept being with them. But guess what? I started studying the Bible. I became a Christian. I started getting excited about church services. I started getting excited about doing it. And there's some things that I used to do with people. They go out and drink, and they go out and do this. I stopped doing all that. And I never in my mind said, I'm going to push these friends aside and I'm going to have these new friends. But you know what? That happened. I can remember Jim Bell when I became a Christian of meeting him. And then was it later after that, David Hartzell and other people. It was not a conscious. There were people I did a lot of things with, and they just dropped out of my life. How do you make friends? One of the key things is when I love God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength, it will change my relationships. And I just want to say kindly, I am very concerned when a Christian chooses to marry a non-Christian. Now, there are situations where the Lord is first to you and you can talk with them and you're influencing your mate. That's good. But sometimes I'm afraid that in a relationship, a person wants to hide their Christianity and then get married. I'm just saying, if it's the most important thing to you, that ought to enter very early into that relationship. How do you make friends? Let me give you the example. 1 Samuel 17. Look at this. Here, if you got your Bible, we're going to look at 1 Samuel 17 and 1 Samuel 19. A few 1 Samuel verses, so open your Bibles for this. Did you know how David and Jonathan became friends? Remember what David did with the Goliath? Everybody's afraid. And David goes, let's take on Goliath. He didn't hesitate. He's defying the armies of God. God will be with me. And so now David goes to meet Saul after the slaughter. Guess what he has in his hand? You know about David getting a head? He literally had a head. And so he's bringing the head to Saul. And guess who's with Saul? Jonathan. And here Jonathan meets David for the first time. Then as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said to him, Whose son are you, young man? Then David answered, I am the son of your servant Jesse the Bethlehemite. Now look at 1 Samuel 18:1. And when he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. You know why Jonathan loved David? You know what Jonathan had done a few chapters earlier? Him and his sword bearer took on a whole garrison of the Philistines. Here was a man of faith. I'm used to doing crazy things, not really crazy things, but things of faith. Here, when you have somebody who's learning to fight for the Lord, and they found somebody else who fights for the Lord, man, this is the kind of person I want to be around. How about that? And what a friendship it was. Jonathan was raised as a godly man by his father Saul. Then Saul later got eaten up with envy. He began to try to kill David. And you know what he did with Jonathan? Jonathan, if you want to be king, you better get rid of David. If you want to be king, David, matter of fact, Jonathan, are you rebelling against me and your mother? Here we begin to see Saul trying to manipulate David. And you know what David was? He was a friend of Jonathan. And you know what Jonathan was? He was a friend of David. Let family pressure or anything else be thrown at that. You're not going to break a friendship that's from God. You're not going to break it. One time, Jonathan goes eyeball to eyeball with his dad in a respectful way, but basically says, Dad, you are wrong about David, and if you think you've got something on him, prove it. 1 Samuel 18:3. Excuse me, and 1 Samuel 19:4. Then Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul his father, and said to him, Let not the king sin against his servant, against David, because he has not sinned against you, and because his works have been very good toward you. For he took his life in his hands and killed the Philistine, and the Lord brought about a great deliverance for Israel. You saw it and rejoiced. Why then will you sin against innocent blood to kill David without a cause? So Saul heeded the voice of Jonathan, and Saul swore, As the Lord lives, he shall not be killed. You know what happened with Saul? He started doing it again, and the next time that Jonathan did this, Saul threw a spear at his own son to kill him. And Jonathan dodged it. But are you following me? Loyalty to God, loyalty to my friends, real friends who love God are one of the greatest gifts God could give you in this life. I saw a little Instagram post the other day of an older couple in a beat-up old pickup truck with a lady leaning on the husband and driving the truck down a road. And the caption was, Most people won't realize how rich this couple has been. Rich relationships of people who love God are one of the greatest gifts that you'll ever have. Who are your friends? I love in 1 Samuel 18 was David and Jonathan got to know each other. And Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan took off the robe that was on him and gave it to David with his armor, even to his sword and his bow and his belt. When it comes to relationships, they all come to an end. Whatever great friends you have today, one day they will end. Maybe you'll be the one that, is taken by God in death. I hope that you don't lose them through sin. There came a time for the friendship of Jonathan and David to end. Saul was determined to kill David, and Jonathan made a signal to David that they would go meet out in the woods, and this is the last known meeting of David and Jonathan. If you knew you had but one more time to talk to your friend before they died, what would it be like? 1 Samuel 23:15 will conclude the lesson on this. So David saw that Saul had come out to seek his life, and David was in the wilderness of Ziph in a forest. Then Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went to David in the woods. This is their last time to meet. They arose and went to David in the woods and strengthened his hand in God. I've told you many times when I first started being with my best friend David, we went out to run. And I'll never forget that first run. He started quoting the scripture about how Jesus said, you know, the ruler of this world is coming and he has nothing in me. And David started talking to me, well, I admire this much about Jesus. We were talking about that on our run. What a friend I had. Oliver Wendell Holmes has a poem I have in the outline. We'll read it and extend the invitation. There is no friend like an old friend who has shared our morning days. No greeting like his welcome. No homage like his praise. It's been encouraging, brethren. Relationships, connection. You see, Rob, it's not just you and I we talk about this. This is critical and crucial for the growth of the Lord. And I would say, as you see our evangelism here, that association, along with the teaching of God's Word, has proved to be a very powerful element in God opening doors for us. If you're not a Christian this morning, the invitation song is now to be extended. We urge you, if there's anything we can assist you with, becoming a Christian, being right with God, this is the time to do that. As far as if you want to publicly respond, we also would encourage you privately, if you just want to get together with someone afterwards. Let's take that next step if we can assist you. Let's be a friend of Jesus and what friends he'll bring for us. If you need to respond in any way, would you come as we stand and sing?